Yo, what is up, my dudes? I'm Frosty, and I'm here to talk about some frame data, my dudes. No, I'm kidding, it's Jaeger. How you guys doing today? Today, I'm gonna talk a little bit about power stance curve swords, which, before we get started, use the timestamps if you don't want to listen to this generational yap session beforehand. For everybody else, I'll explain a little bit about this thing. So, this might be the worst fall off for any setup in this whole game. So, power stance curve swords have never been great. They've always had a very bad range issue, as well as just not really holding up to the setups that are actually at the top of the meta very well at all. They've always had a poise damage issue, but what they always did have at the start of the game was ludicrous damage. So, if you did manage to hit your opponent, you were gonna two-shot them, one-shot them, based on your setup. But unfortunately, every single patch of this game, just about, has nerfed something as a concept that has indirectly gutted this setup due to making those different damage things worse. So I can think of probably like 3 or 4 separate times that power stance damage was dropped, which has always hurt this setup, as well as a few times that things such as jump attack damage and the buffs for it were nerfed. And then there was also the time that the bleed exaltations got nerfed drastically, going from increasing it to about like 20% extra damage once a bleed has happened to like 6% or like 6.5, something on those lines. And considering that this is a setup that really only has damage, these have always been very bad for the power stanced curve swords. But the nail in the coffin was the DLC, because it introduced backhand blades, which are doing pretty much the same job as this, but with so much more consistency, able to work so much better just to having so much better frame data that it's not even a question. Like, if you're using these things, you're doing it because you want to do something fun. It's not because it's your best option. If you want to use a poise counting setup, which this is, backhand blades and twin blade are significantly better options. But let's say you're like me, this hits a little bit of a nostalgia bone for you and you want to use it anyway. So there's a couple things you got to understand about this moveset and its numbers. Now, like I said before, this is a poise counting setup. You need to understand when your power stance attacks will and will not break someone's poise. So the first thing is you have to set up with a poise counting setup. You have to make sure that you did not break their poise to make sure that later, with a more advantageous attack, that you do break their poise. So some of the important ones are the backswing of the Shamshir, which does about 87.75 poise damage. It's just slightly under 88. A one-handed curve sword on the first hit does 110, or on, say, like a running attack, for example. This does 110 poise damage. And then the follow-up does 67.75, if I remember correctly. It's just shy of 68. So once again, two-handed backswing is just shy of 88, one-handed backswing is just shy of 68, and the first R1 when one-handed is 110. Now, if you look at your opponent's armor and you can tell that they can poise tank at least some of these things, it will influence your decision making. If someone's wearing very little poise at all, then you can kind of just out the gate come swinging with your L1s and whatnot, because these are generally doing about 90, I think, on the first hit of the running L1, and then each hit of this is doing either 90 or 110. The first two hits do about 90, and then the second two would do about 110. And then the way that the poise damage is split up on the power stance attacks is a bit confusing. So this L1 right here hits twice. The first one, 110 poise damage. The second one, a little bit over 27. But then on the second L1, 2 hits, The first one does 27, and then the second one does 110. Very strange stuff. It flip-flops which one is doing the majority of the poise damage. But generally speaking, if you see your opponents wearing very heavy armor, if you're able to hit them with one of those aforementioned things to set up for your other power stance attacks, you should be good to go, right? Hit them with this, you only know they can have so much left, and then you go for something else, right? It's also worth mentioning that this running attack, other than against people with very low poise damage, is terrible. This is like so slow in actuality, and it only really gets people that are panic rolling. So that's not very good. But what is actually pretty good is the second hit of your L1, because this is frame 12, which is very fast. And then your jumping L1 is frame 8. And as I mentioned earlier, its poise damages are actually pretty good. And so there's a couple interesting things that come from this, right? You can, say, go for the jump L1 if you know that they can't tank it, and while it has very little range, it is able to still, despite all those nerfs, do pretty damn good damage. And then also, all of your jump attacks go into that second L1. And because of how fast it is, if someone tries to mash out of hit stun, or say they're waiting for like a running attack, for example, this has a very good chance of hitting them. This is a deceptively fast attack, okay? Like, if someone's dense enough to try and mash through your jump L1, you might right here just do like 1600 damage between these two attacks, which is very nice. But yeah, with that being said, oh wait, hang on, I just remembered some other very interesting tech. The different R1s of curved swords, right? They are very significant. The reason that you see people use the Shamshir is for this R1 moveset. This is, generally speaking, much better than the normal one. But there are some reasons to use the normal R1 moveset. So what's interesting about both one-handed and two-handed R1s for this normal one is that it has a specific window for using the light attack that is generally faster than the Shamshirs. Now, the thing is that the Shamshirs cancel windows other than this unique one that the normal moveset has. All of its other cancels are better. So if you plan on doing, say, R1, L1 to keep priority, you will want to do that with the Shamshir. But if you plan on just doing R1, R1 when one-handing, it might actually be more advantageous to do it with the Bandit Curve Sword. Also, something interesting is that the normal moveset is a little bit faster when one-handed. The Shamshir one-handed R1 is frame 15, whereas this one's frame 14. So there is actually a reason to run two bandits rather than what most people that run this do with a off-bandit main Shamshir. There is legitimately a reason to choose one over the other, which is pretty cool. It's also worth mentioning that this two-handed moveset, if you hit with the very latest hit of the jumping R2, then it should land a true combo into the R1. Now, hopefully this hasn't changed over time. I got some weird results in today's footage where sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I will need to do more testing on that, but I definitely know that in prior patches that latest hit jump R2 into this version of the R1 was a true combo. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that the majority of today's footage is going to be a bleed build. I do some right here with this very high strength build right here for when I'm two-handing the Shamshir, as well as bandits actually getting pretty darn good damage on strength. But the other thing I'm running is an 88 poise armor setup with the bird helmet that gets me to 35 strength, 35 dex, and 39 arcane, which is pretty darn cool. Now, if I was trying to make this build optimized around having some specific swaps, then I would let go of some of that damage to put more into endurance, getting it probably somewhere between 25 and 30. But for this setup with the bird that you're going to see here in a little bit, I can get away with that at 19 endurance, and I was optimizing for damage. But with that being said, I think I've covered everything. And if you have listened to me yap for this much, I don't know what to say. You're a G, I reckon. So, without a further ado, let's go ahead and get into the duelos and evasianos. Alright, well, I recommend everybody take a big, deep breath in and a big, deep breath out. Because holy moly, do we have a lot of yap session to get going on from here on out. So, I guess I should address the fact I've been gone for another month and a half. I'm sorry. Life has been giving a lot of lemons lately, and I mean a lot. Our whole family, not even just our household family, just our whole family has gotten sick over and over and over and over and over and over. And then we we had tornadoes threatening to sweep the city off its feet. Then we had my mom and sister who got horrendously sunburned to the point that they were borderline non-functional. The last couple of weeks have been bullshit, okay? Bullshit. And so, even though I haven't been making many normal videos, and you guys have probably seen me say a time or two that I'm working on some really big videos that are, going to be well edited and whatnot. I haven't been able to get as much progress on those done as I want to, just because of the amount of stuff that has gone on this last month or so. So I do apologize. This has been a crazy couple months. We have had a lot of setbacks. But you know what? It's okay, because we have Birdman here, okay? The character you're looking at, that is Birdman, okay? First thing on the list of things to do as Birdman is get knocked out of the air into guaranteed backstab. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, because Birdman doesn't give a fuck, okay? Birdman will make a comeback, so don't you worry. But thanks to my my mod for finding this armor for me, I thought that getting 88 poise was going to be difficult with the bird helmet. I just thought there has to be some defensive, downside to a helmet that doesn't weigh much, that also gives you 7 stat points. No. You silly Billy. You don't understand the type of stuff put in the DLC. That right there is why we're running Stormblade on our curved swords, because of the boluses. But what's this? And here we have the average Kevin. Notice how distraught he is at the sight of the Birdman, aka Michael Keaton from Birdman 2014. The Birdman starts roosting and laying eggs. Much time is elapsed, to the point that the Kevin is no longer distraught. Just kidding. He becomes distraught once more. So much so that he seeks comfort. But considering that this is Elden Ring, he needs to get it from the person who is angering him. Then they start doing a rain dance. This is to help the Birdman in his roosting process of producing more eggs. He kicks the Birdman in the face, which is quite rude, but more roosting needs to be done, and thus he continues. After all this time roosting, the person in question starts contracting telekinesis AIDS, and now he's covered in AIDS. Very disturbing. Absolutely frightening. Sorry, I don't know where my microphone just went. I hope we're back now. But yeah, but also when it comes to not having been here for a moment, let me just ask you this. Can you blame me all that much? Vanilla Elden Ring is, I mean, it just keeps on being what it is, and it don't be amazing, now do it. Most people nowadays are either mages that just run away, or they're G9 wannabes, but they're not good. And so you might die to them because they're using BHS clean rot, and then they start kick spamming. You know, the good stuff, the great stuff, if you will. Because when I think of Elden Ring, the first thing I think about is BHS clean rot. But it's okay, because the Birdman is a new addition to the Jaegerverse, and he is blind. How did that hit me? Well, that's interesting. Anyway, the Birdman is blind to these faults with the game, and he's a bit of a PvEer. That is why he's using bleed bandits after all. So, you know what? Maybe he'll do aight for himself. Okay? Now, I should mention this too. The reason that the majority of the video is with bleed is because bleed helps a lot in the hyper armor matchup for poise chip setups. The annoying thing about hyper armor in this game is that it completely resets your poise chip. If you just chip someone's poise with a dagger, for example, if they use a hyper armor attack, or at least the majority of them, then their poise health goes right back up to full. Steal that from the clutches of losing right there, which is quite nice. Wait, where's my microphone going again? And here we are in the Halig Tree with a little man named Chalelos. Notice as we start roosting for just a moment. This is a sign of peace. Now a duel commences. Things are looking good so far for the Birdman. He gets his bleed proc and does a lot of damage, which is critical for winning. However, the Birdman is in a good mood today, so he allows the host to start healing, who also, I've just noticed, does no fucking damage. Thus, we give him something to heal back up to full HP. We began roosting once again, and laid an egg 4 feet behind us. Very terrifying, the lengths to which he can shoot eggs. Now, from here on, he is going to help our little Chalelos, showing him a little bit of hidden tech, being able to jump on these eggs that the Birdman produced. And from here on, he's going to try and make it a little bit easier for him, after he almost falls to his death. From here, the Birdman starts breaking the ballistas. These are very dangerous to the host and phantoms, but believe it or not, invaders are able to break them. There are 4 in total, and thus they all must be broken individually. After this, we go back to find our buddy Chalelos, after we have destroyed the last one. He has a difficult time with a greatsword hollow, so we help him out a little bit by giving him a warming stone. Very generous. If only every invader was actually a blue in disguise, like the Birdman. From here on, our way is made to the bonfire. However, the Birdman, having clipped his wings, falls straight on his ass. Very stupid. And from here on, we have made it to our goal. It turns out that the bonfire has been lit already, so as recompense, the Birdman drops a very large rune and heads on out. What a beautiful sign of wholesomeness in Elden Ring. GG's Chalelos. God damn it. Okay, I legitimately don't know what's happening. Like, my mic actively just disappeared in front of me, okay? Anyway, so we're back to invading. I'm wondering where that phantom just went. I'm, like, looking up and down for him. Watch this. Hi! What you doing there? You need to get your cutie patootie self on out of here, because the Birdman ain't all about that. Bro, I'm such a rambler. It's actually crazy, dude. Like, it's amazing to me how much nothing I can say. So I guess I'll say a little bit of something. I was legitimately surprised to see how good this setup can do if you infuse heavy for strength. And I didn't realize until a buddy told me the DLC greases are kind of broken. If I'm not mistaken, they last longer than a normal grease, but also like the AR they add is like ridiculous. On the strength character, I got like almost 770 on one of the bandits after a lightning grease, which is just insane. Also, speaking of insane, the guy right there was saved by his host. God, man, this fucking shit game, man. Story of gankers, outplayed and saved. But, yeah, dude, it's a bit interesting right here because we have some PvEers. They have, like, very basic armor. And you know what? Scrap everything I was just about to say. The Phantom left his host to die. This Phantom secretly hated his host. That right there is something truly special. I didn't know the guy down there was alive. I probably should have been a little bit more observative and brought them over to him. But hey, all's well that ends well. Another nice thing about this setup is that if I'm ever fighting a setup that's just, or like a player that's just like using really strong stuff, or something like, I don't know, blind spot backhand blades, like a particular somebody that's on screen, we can just use Shamshir for the most part and have a pretty good time. Shamshir, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I don't know how to fight Shamshir. Like, I know spacing, timing, blah, 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 but the moment I put on good armor to the point that I can tank the backswing, I always fight Shamshir players that block cancel, like thrusting sword players on their R1. And it's tough, dude. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. It's crazy. Feels like it's never my turn, so I definitely have to get in the call with someone and duel it out, figure it out, you know what I'm saying? There's quite a few little things like that I still don't understand greatly in terms of fighting all that well. Another really big one for me is scythes. A little bit of a Looney Tunes moment right there. A little bit of the Roadrunner, the coyote falling off. And we start roosting again. Laying eggs. But another one is Scythe. Scythe, I've come to realize that the R1 early hits like a motherfucker, okay? It's frame 15, which is only one frame slower than Thrusting Sword. But I think that if you're at just the right range where the blade is like closer to you than the shaft is, I think it hits a lot earlier than it looks like it's supposed to, which is quite frankly terrifying. Speaking of terrifying, we got an invasion down here in the gutter, if you will. It's not called the gutter. My youngest sister has been playing the Souls games for the first time, and she was not having a great time with Dark Souls 2. I had to give her a bit of advice to stop being a big old dum-dum. She got to Black Gulch, okay, before places like Lost Bastille, before the Iron Keep. She got to Black Gulch, and none of her weapons were upgraded, except for an infantry axe at +1. I looked at that, and I literally facepalmed myself. I told my sister, "You're cooked." At least this game's kind enough to let you warp out in comparison to the first half of Dark Souls 1. So if that were not the case, she would have screwed herself up, dude. But she actually really liked Dark Souls 1, but she's like a let's just say a Fortnite enjoyer, to put it nicely, and she will literally like play through an area with like 10 enemies chasing her, and then just God, that backstab attempt, that was not nice, was it? Like, she'll have 10 enemies actively attacking her and blocking the door, and yeah, just keep on running past them, refusing to hit them. Like, if you know the Hollow, think of the Hellkite Bridge, right? You have the under section, which is easier to traverse, how there's that one spear guy that's on that very narrow spot right before the room with the rats. She refused to hit the damn thing. And I watched her die like 5 times trying to like walk on thin air to the left around the thing. And I was like, you are making this so much harder for yourself. Like, you have chosen the worst way to do this. But, hey, I mean, she beat the game in 3 days, so maybe she's gonna make a great speedrunner. I don't know. Let me get some water. Drink water, guys. I know that it's hard to have the idea of doing something like drinking water when you're watching such a breathtaking yap session, but do remember to stay hydrated when you are listening to a yap session. Now, I will say this too about this setup. It does do quite a lot better in invasions. There's still way better things for invasions, like even despite the damage that this does, there's just weapons and stuff out there nowadays that do same or more damage easier or more consistently. Like, you have, say, like Sword Lance, for example. You have things such as Waves of Darkness, all of these different things. Don't get me wrong, even despite all the nerfs to this setup, it's not that it does bad damage, it's just that, like, you could do, like, the same damage with a twin blade that has less investment and actually does more damage, and also has way better frame data, right? So, you know, it is what it is, but a lot of people just get scared by this build. Honestly, this is an aura merchant. Like, if you guys watch like MMA YouTube, you know of like people describing some fighters as aura merchants because like they look undefeatable until they get like subbed or something. This is an aura merchant setup, okay? People get so scared by the running L1, even though it stinks on ice. And so, against a lot of people, I reckon that your job does become easier in invasions. People are just scared of it more. Also, watch this. God, man, this fucking shit game, man, with its fucking gravity, man, makes me want to play Armored Core. Sorry, I don't know why. I've been doing a G9 impersonation a lot recently. I've been dying to a lot of bullshit because, you know, that is the middle name of Elden Ring is bullshit. and sometimes even when I'm just on my lonesome, I'll start doing that, or I'll do a Steelovsky. Okay, I don't know if this microphone's gonna make it sound as good as it sounds to me when I say it, but like, I have a pretty decent Polish amphibian impersonation. Okay, I think so at least. So, like, I don't know. I'll do it next invasion that I lose, you know? But we got a bit of an interesting one right here. We have a Knight Enjoyer, Knight Armor Enthusiast, but we're having a bit of a tough time because these guys are using a lot of spells and ashes that are very good at controlling space, and it makes it to where we have to play the checkerboard. We have to wait for our turn, but we keep getting our turn stolen by the Hunter and the Phantom. Very sad stuff indeed. But we do have, thankfully, this little wall that we're able to work with. This wall is our savior. If you're ever in an overworld invasion and you just got a whole bunch of projectiles coming your way, the best thing you can do is try to get as close to ruins or just a stray broken piece of wall as you can. Because, like, that's one of the biggest reasons why Elden Ring invasions just fall flat on their face in, like, 80% of areas. It's because of the lack of things in your environment to work with. Like, I do like the overworld for, like, just PvE. I think it's very pretty. I love just walking around places and the ambient sounds and whatnot. I love that. But for invasions, it's terrible. Like, I wouldn't blame somebody as an invader if they just severed out of, like, every single overworld invasion they got just out of principle. Like, I wouldn't fault them for that. I thought it was Raps right here. Thankfully, he did not do more damage with that Dragon Breath. Yeah, speaking of Dragon Breath, there's one of the things for, like, the final patch of the game that I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see it do no poise damage at all. Because, I mean, I really don't know if there's a different change out there they'd even consider doing. I mean, it's not like we're ever... I mean, the final patch is probably just going to be like a TF2 localization file update where, like, nothing happens. Hang on, sidetrack right here. Look at the cave we're in. Watch this, okay? I was wholly unready for what was about to happen. Claws of Night? Whoa, that sleep build-up. What the hell? Uh-huh. This game is fucking garbage. Kurva much. So we have Sir Misagiri, or whatever. It just moved me on, bro. I'm so miserable with this game, dude. We have Mr. Misagiri, and he's up. He's up, okay? You can see him right there if you look near the top of the screen. I need the Bloody Finger to give us uppies, okay? So that's 2 times that we've gotten something not worth a damn. Okay, let's see if we get it this time. No! No, of course we don't. Once again, another thing that may or may not be a very welcome change in the final update for the game. Just make it infinite use. Like, the spawns being terrible, I don't think that's ever going to be fixed. But just make it infinite use so there's, like, a chance of eventually getting a spawn point that doesn't suck. Like, this item is just worthless. As it would turn out, the moment we got up there, he jumps down and starts running to the next side of grace. I can't, bro. The comedic timing on this, I wish I had planned it, because I didn't, okay? It just... it does not work out in a favorable way, does it? There is an example of the terrible poise damage on the running L1. He's not even wearing that heavy of armor. He might, at max, have like 90 poise, and he was able to poise that. Watch this. Chug, 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 L1, L1. We're just punching him in the face like over and over, like that one Don Fry fight where he's just like they've grabbed a hold of each other and they're just socking each other in the face over and over. But I thought he gave up there for a second. He like stood still. I was like, "Did you give up, home dog?" Alas, no, he did not. Get a little bit of a bleed proc right there. Very nice. That's probably something I forgot to mention earlier too, is Ash of War choice. If you're running bleed, I do recommend to run Stormblade or Beast Roar, something on those lines, to where you can on reaction. Hang on a second. Why is the world? Was that not the host? What? Oh. So you mean to tell me I spent 10 minutes getting the wrong spawn point, running to him, having a perfectly fine fight for a disconnect? Okay. Alright. Whatever you say, Brody. But, yeah, I was trying out Sword Stance here for a little bit on the bleed setup. Sword Stance does help Power Stance Curve Sword quite a lot. I mean, it is just kind of like one of the best Ashes of War in the game, but the forward momentum you get is a very big deal. Can't believe I didn't get frenzied by that. But yeah, having the Stormblade on your main hand one is very good, because like anybody that like is, you know, got like a dupe stash or just, you know, has their wits about them, they're going to bleed Ballas, and you need to get some like guaranteed value for that. Now granted, I do personally think that strategy is stronger on a more poison build focus setup, And the reason why is because the buff that you get from the exaltations is much greater for poison. And poison's also a lot easier to proc, especially considering it works especially well on latency rather than being kneecapped like bleed is. Also, that's another reason to run bleed on this setup. Get hit by the roof right there, very nice. But yeah, the bleed proc actually works really nicely on power stance curve swords, and the reason why is because of those attacks that hit 4 times, like your jumping and your running attack. So if you were to say like phantom hit bleed proc them on like the first 2 hits, a bleed proc will pull someone out of a roll. So if you bleed on the first couple hits, amazing mash right there by yours truly. That was truly spectacular. That is something that Power Stance Curve Swords is very proficient at, actually. So maybe don't mash against bleed bandits. That may not be the world's best strategy to survival, to be honest, bestie. Okay? But, yeah, The sword stance does help greatly with the distance that we travel, and the bleed proc being able to happen on the first 2 hits is the most advantageous for this setup. Right here we have some people actually playing the level. What you doing, dude? You don't play through the level in Elden Ring. And the Birdman is roosting once again. Roosting once again, laying eggs. That's canon, by the way. Also, I didn't say it earlier. Consider maybe liking and subscribing to keep the Birdman from laying eggs on you. That would be quite the displeasurable situation to be in. I don't recommend allowing that to happen. PvE or playing the level? No, sir. Nope. You don't play the level in Elden Ring. You run past everything, and you DC when there's an invader. That is how you play the game. Okay. It is time to witness depravity. Part of the reason I don't play this game much anymore is because of what you're about to see. Okay? This was like 6 minutes. It felt like 60. So they set a little trap with items right there. We have some Korean players, and I'm like thinking nothing of it as of yet. Okay, so I just got my buffs all taken away. Look at that. Look at these two. These are 2 max level Korean players. Phantom, excuse me, they're all Korean. That, one, are trying to deathblight me because they know that they have high lat to everybody. And the host is running the bleed. They're also running stuff like poison as well, as you'll see a little bit later. But this is quite hairy, right? Like, I know that I can like turn around and mash, but like they keep on the guy jumping over and over is complicating things, because if I hit the phantoms like that, but then the host does a jump attack, the other 2 are just going to mash out a hit stun. They're max level. Why wouldn't they mash out a hit stun? Also, they're Eclipse Shodels. They're trying the Deathblight, so they have them unupgraded, in case you're wondering. But I eventually realized how much of my Estus I've already burned through, and I want you to watch this, okay? I decide I want to run and heal. I speed this up times 8, and what do they immediately start doing? Bone bowing. Both of the phantoms. Max level, in Limgrave, soft swapping between like 15,000 different weapons, bone bowing. Thank goodness they weren't using sleep. Yeah, so I just run as long as I can. I start light rolling to try and get through the bone bow better, but that costs me greatly because it makes me get hit by that. Dude, like, bro, this is just like, I'm sorry, but what type of fun is to be garnered from playing like that? Like, there's not a single advantage they didn't accrue for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, fighting stuff like that is just like, you know, I was trying to get away long enough to just finger sever, and I couldn't because it was Limgrave. They could just get hit and run past everything and just keep bone bowing me for infinitum. Like, truly unbelievable stuff. Yeah, and that's part of the reason that I plan on just making videos that are more all-encompassing of all of these games. Because as of the current moment, like, you do have PvEers sometimes, but there's a very large population of people that play like that. And, you know, I just don't have a whole lot of fun just running away from that for like a whole hour straight. Like, you know, not that great of a time, TBH, bestie. Now, I had died to these guys instantly in an invasion I didn't put in the video. It was like at the beginning of the prayer room. I went for one attack and instantly died. But I managed to kill the most problematic one first. And then it's just, they keep mashing out of hit stun. There's one thing you cannot do against power stance curve swords, and that's mash out of hit stun. Don't do it. Don't do it, Batman. I don't know why I said that as though I'm Trunks speaking to Batman. Please excuse me, my brain rot has gotten insane, alright? But here I'm swapped over to a strength build. The damage on these things is actually really nice. At meta level 125, a lot of weapons you would think would do the best on, like, dexterity, stuff like that, actually do the best on strength. When it comes to just like a basic weapon enjoyer build, at 125 you should just go with strength. It does, generally speaking, a lot better than the other builds in terms of weapon damage. He is a panic roller right there with not much poise, which is where that little attack right there really shines. So GG's, dude. But yeah, had a couple more duels. I was enjoying the build despite its shortcomings, so I decided to do a little bit more dueling right there. Waited for the roll catch, jump over that. The Great Epé's a very interesting weapon. I love the Great Épée. The speed buff to the R2 was such a good decision, in my opinion. Like, heavy thrusting swords just got nerfed all the time for no reason for such a long time. And then they finally get a buff that increases the speed of the R2s, like, very significantly. And that I love. That was a good change. That was the best change that has come for this game since the DLC came out, probably. Yeah, but what's weird about the Great Épée R2 is that it consumes almost no stamina for some reason. Like, I compared it to, like, the R2 of a straight sword, and it consumes, like, half, or even less than half, as much as a straight sword's R2, which is very strange. Honestly, I might make a Great Épée video in the future. So right here, this guy's doing a little bit of high poise, high hyper armor things, which is quite difficult for this build because our stuff is getting reset over and over, our poise damage. But right there was what I was talking about before, where he got pulled out of the roll by the running L1, and the rest of it was able to hit him. Very good stuff right there. That only works on a bleed build. So very nice, to be honest. Yeah, and so I'm just doing a little bit right here. Very, very close fight right there. That was a very good one. Lances also, two-handed lance is also kind of a problem matchup for me. I don't know if people would agree with me, but back when Shunter was in its heyday, I honestly think that two-handed lance is harder to deal with. Good God. Oh my God, the damage right there. But the reason why is because you can't really strafe the lance's crouch attack. I don't think it does near as much damage, but, like, I think people are finally to the understanding that, like, just the entire lance moveset's really good. And also the R2 got buffed drastically. I don't know if people have been here since before 1.14, but that R2 used to be one of the worst in the game. the R2 of the basic lance, it was so slow. And very nice R2 right there by that guy. Gets clipped by that. GG, sir. But that R2 is probably quite literally twice as fast as it used to be. Now, granted, I do kind of wish that they had done something to differentiate the Sword Lance's version of that R2. The Sword Lance is very obnoxious with that super fast R2. Like, I liked the combo existing for the Sword Lance when the R2 was slow as balls, but now it's actually pretty damn fast. Like, you can actually roll catch people consistently with it. So I'm not a fan of that personally, but yeah, we have a little bit of this going on right here. Here's an example of that jumping R2 doing really good work, like that right there. He does roll out immediately, so we're not able to get that follow-up L1, but he does miss a backstab. GG, sir. Yeah, going for a little bit of backstabs right here, over and over. Quite nice. And yeah, dude, you guys, I might make a video in the future where I'm just two-handing like one of the normal curved swords. I think people sleep on just how nice these can be. Like, I know the Shamshir's R1 is like way better, but like if you're using the bandits, you do have like the identical moveset outside of the R1, and it is longer and hits significantly harder. So like I do think that like it would be very squarely off meta, but like I think it would still be a very functional weapon. You know what I'm saying? And also, I don't know if my wording was as clear as it could have been, but what's interesting about the version of the R1 chain that the Bandits has in comparison to Shamshir is that for some reason it cancels into your second R1 faster. It cancels into the backswing quicker, which is quite nice. You know what I'm saying? So it does mash a little bit faster. And then we have something interesting for the last clip. And he's just walking at us with a moon veil. It's terrifying. And then he finally goes for it as he's about to die. Have a good rest of your day, guys.